Hey, Chris, we've got a great guest today on Ditch Digger CEO. I'm pretty excited. How about you?
Oh man, I'm very excited. Let's talk to him.
Absolutely. We've got a guy. We talk about differentiation all the time, and Glen Meakem is a huge differentiator in this industry that he's creating, and we're excited to have him. Welcome, Glen, to Ditch Digger CEO.
Hey, Gary, it's great to be with you. Chris, great to be with you as well.
So Glenn, you know what? We love having people on on the podcast that really differentiate in a big way. I believe you differentiate or you die when it comes to businesses. If you want to be the world's best in what you do, you got to differentiate strong with some great value propositions that others might not think about. And I got to tell you, you got a great one here, buddy. So I can't wait to get started. We want to start though, Glenn, with kind of your upbringing and how you got into this business world and why you love it so much, why you love being an entrepreneur and how that all came about. So if you can just start from the beginning, buddy, what was it like as a kid and what gave you this vision that you could survive in the world of business?
Well, thanks, Gary. I grew up just outside. I was born in New York City, grew up outside New York City, in a suburb north of town. And I have always had I've always been a really good salesman. I've always enjoyed being with people, and I've always had kind of entrepreneurial ambitions. So I guess the start for me was in my education. I also really enjoyed school. I enjoyed sports. I enjoyed school, and I worked hard at all that. And my strat. So my first business, I was 12 years old. I started a lawn cutting business. I know you'd appreciate that, and I did that for a number of summers, and I learned so much. And my dad was a great mentor about business. He was passionate about, delivering quality and making sure that the customer was happy. And I learned a lot of lessons just with my lawn cutting business. And then in college, I had a painting business 2 summers. And that tied into my military experience because I went to Harvard actually on a military scholarship for the Army and to become an Army officer. And so I'd be at boot camp like half the summer, 6 or 8 weeks. And then I'd have 4 weeks at the end, and I'd always paint a house or two. And I had younger brothers. I'd employ them, or I'd employ other kids, and we'd paint a house or two at the end of the summer. And so I always had this entrepreneurial streak. And then I pursued my education. I got the best education I could. I went to Harvard undergraduate. I worked. Then I graduated. I went to the Army for a while. And then I got my first job in business was with Kraft General Foods and marketing. And I learned a ton about marketing and about everything, positioning and pricing and product quality. And I learned a lot about logistics and manufacturing. And that was a great experience. Although I always tell people, and I tell my own kids, I have 5 kids, and I've been married 34 years with my wife, Diane. And I tell my kids, thank you. But I tell my kids all the time, you got to learn through both positive and negative experience. And, I learned a lot. Maybe we'll talk about it later. I learned a lot of great things as an Army officer, learned a ton of great stuff. But I also had some negative experience too. I learned some things to avoid. Same thing with Kraft General Foods. I learned a lot of great stuff, but I also learned some things like, okay, I'll never do that if I run a business. And then I went back to Harvard. I went to Harvard Business School and had that same attitude of I need to learn and get as much knowledge as I can. And then I left Harvard Business. Well, during the middle of Harvard Business School, I had to go back in the Army. I volunteered and served in the first Gulf War. So I was a combat engineer platoon leader in the first Gulf War in 1990-91. Then I got done with that, finished business school, and I went to the consulting firm McKinsey. And this is interesting, I did a lot of strategy work. I did some commodities trading work. I was in Houston, Texas. And I also did some sourcing work where, helping large corporations save money on their purchasing. And I stayed there at McKinsey 2.5 years. Great experience. I had mostly positive experience at McKinsey. I learned so much, but the lifestyle wasn't really for me. And so then I got a great job offer to go to GE, and I joined General Electric Corporation up in Connecticut, moved up to, the Connecticut area. The headquarters was in Fairfield, Connecticut. This is in 1994. And I joined an internal consulting group. It was sort of an internal consulting group, a lot of ex-consultants who worked on Jack Welch's staff. And I did that for a year. And it's interesting. There was a lot of people focused on like mergers and acquisitions work. And there were people focused on operations improvement. There were people focused on all kinds of stuff in this group. There were like 30 of us. And there was like one guy focused on purchasing. And I knew from my experience that I could mint money by helping find better suppliers at better prices. And so I said, well, I'll do purchasing. I mean, it was so unglamorous, right? This is like ditch digging, very unglamorous. But if smart people focus on something that's unglamorous, sometimes you can make a lot of money. And I knew from my McKinsey experience, I could mint money with purchasing. So I joined this group, like two of us, and we started. I started working across the GE businesses on how you, save money by finding better suppliers, understanding what we're buying, getting scale, all those kind of things. And this was 1994. The browser hadn't come out yet, but the internet was sort of starting to happen. And we had this idea of maybe we could take bids on the internet. So we did, and we realized real quick, okay, not only could we accept bids on the internet, but if bids came in from a supplier on the internet, in the process of confirming the bid back to that one supplier, we could confirm that bid to all the other suppliers bidding. So we could create real-time global interactive auctions. I mean, interactive auctions in real time, which had never been done before. And so I stayed with GE for about 6 or 8 months after that, working on that idea within GE. But I said, as good a company as it was at the time, it's still a big corporation. And I was just, my back to the lawn cutting and the painting, I'd always wanted to start my own business. And I had a zillion ideas as a teenager, then in my 20s. At this point, I was 30, and it was like, wow, this internet thing, using the internet to improve industrial sourcing is a big idea. And so I checked out of GE. I was only there a year. I left and I started a company called Free Markets. That was in 1995. And it was basically creating, it was doing it just using the internet to automate the sourcing process, the finding suppliers, the writing of requests for quotation and requests for proposal, and then the negotiation process between suppliers to get to price, to get to end deals. And so it was like, and we had a whole bunch of patents on the whole process of downward price auctions. So my company and I, we invented downward price auctions on the internet. It saved companies, millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. I started the company in 95, took it public in 1999, and then sold it to another public company in 04. And one reason I'm here today is I'm ambitious and I like to keep contributing, but we took our company public in December 1999, which is at the height of the internet bubble. And we were all the insiders, we were all locked up. And then the crash, the first big internet crash happened in March of 2000. So, I ended up doing extremely well with this thing, but on paper, I was a billionaire for a while, but that didn't last long because of the internet bubble crash. So, but then, we kept building the company. We got it to about 200 million in revenue and eventually sold it to another company called Ariba. And then Ariba eventually sold to SAP, the German software company.
Yeah,
Ariba,
what was that? 2000 what you sold to them?
2004. We sold it in 2004. Took it public took Free Markets public in 1999 and then sold it to Ariba. Actually, it was a 55-45 merger. So we were 45% of the value. They were 55%. That merged the two companies together in 04. Then I left. And then, great guy named Bob Calderoni was the CEO. He was not the founder of Ariba. He had succeeded a guy named Keith Kroc, who was the founder. Maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe in 01 or 02, Bob succeeded Keith as the CEO. And then Bob was the CEO when we merged Free Markets and Ariba together. And he did a great job. He did a fabulous job because they eventually sold to when we merged the two companies together in 04, the combined market cap was like 1.1 billion. And in 2012, they sold it to Ariba for something like 5 or 6 billion. I mean, they did really, really well in those 8 years. And in the meantime, I had moved on to, I left right after the sale or the merger.
Well, it's funny thing, Glenn, is I'm not invested in stocks too much. I do a little here and there, playing around, but not very much. And I got hit hard in 2000, 2001 and to that time. But I know I bought Ariba stock. Somebody told me about Ariba stock in the mid 2000s, 2005, 6, 7, whatever it was. And I know I wasn't in it long, maybe a year or two. For me, that's probably common if I'm in a stock. And I did find it. I don't know what years was. I did find it. I gained it. I didn't know what the heck they even did, but somebody told me to buy him. And found out. But that's funny. That's the part.
It was a good company, and Bob is the CEO, and then a lot of members of my team stayed, and they did a great job together. So that was the whole free market story. But then after '04, when I left, I started doing super angel investing, and I did very well with a number of different investments I made. And all those are over. Like and of course I lost money on some, but I did really well on a few. And I have one investment left over from them that's still going, which is called niche.com, NICHE.com. And it's literally the place on the internet to find your niche. So if you're a young person in high school trying to figure out where to go to college, niche.com is like the top site on the internet to figure out where you want to go to college. And then actually now they have this direct admissions program where you can actually apply directly to a whole bunch of colleges through niche. And that business, the founding CEO is a guy named Luke Skurman, who's just terrific and brilliant and a wonderful entrepreneur and a great guy. And so he's the founding CEO. He runs the company every day. I've been chairman of the board since I invested like 19 years ago now. And that business took a long time to get to where it is, but it's booming. And so that's actually one of my sidelights is being chairman of the board of Niche and advising Luke in the background. But
That's cool.
yeah,
It seems like that business could be used to find your niche, not just in school and education, but also in business, right?
yeah. So they have a bunch. The niche strategy is a multi-vertical strategy, and the number one vertical is the college, undergraduate vertical. The number two vertical is actually K through 12. So helping parents figure out where to send their kids to K through 12 school. And even, you're moving to a new city or a new community. It's like, what's the best public high school or best public school system here? If I want to send my kids to public school, where's, help determine where you want to live. That's
Right.
another vertical is where to live. The fourth vertical is where to go to grad school. And then the fifth vertical is actually the career vertical. And niche is just booming. It's a fairly large company now. It's, like 500 employees, and I won't quote the exact revenue number, but it's a big number, and it's doing extremely well. And one of the real growth opportunities for that company is not only to keep building out the education verticals, but other verticals eventually. So it's doing really well.
What was the third vertical you mentioned?
So the first is undergraduate college. The second is K through 12 education. The third is actually where to live, because where to live and where to send your kids to school are so closely aligned. And then the fourth vertical is graduate school, and the fifth vertical is where to work. And so like I said, those are the five verticals. This company is just it's large and growing. It's actually going to be cash flow positive and profitable in 2024, almost profitable in 2023, despite its growth and despite its size. It does so well that it's a real business.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, you should talk to Luke Skurman sometime on this podcast. He's a terrific entrepreneur. But and part of the lesson of Luke Skurman and Niche is that it takes stick-to-itiveness to succeed sometimes. I mean, he always believed in the business, and I believed in it too, but it took a long time. It's not like back in my world in free markets, right? I started a business in 1995. First couple of years getting it off the ground were hard, but then it just exploded. And then we took it public. I took that company public 4 years and 9 months after I founded it. I mean,
wow,
that is just that doesn't even happen anymore. That was of that era, right? And now it takes a lot longer, but it takes, you got to really stick to things to succeed. It's if you really believe in something and it makes sense and you can build a great team, you got to have all that, but then you got to stick to it. It's not like there's flashes in the pan. It doesn't, you don't get to see, you know this, you don't succeed overnight. It takes a lot of years, a lot of times to succeed.
absolutely. And it's sticking to it and understanding when you should pivot, where that pivot should be, right? Because so often you start out with this great idea, and I get a business right now. I'm selling my last 10% of. Is an idea that I had, my son and I had when Uber started getting popular years ago, and we're in the trucking dump truck business and the paving business. We said, man, wouldn't it be nice if there was an Uber of dump trucks? So we built it basically. And the CEO I had was just not culturally not a fit for us, for me and my team. So I ended up saying it's for sale, and I sold it for, not a bad, not a lot of money, but 6 or 7 million back, 5 years ago. And he went on with a new company and really did a pretty good job in this thing. But it's selling right now for just under 70 million. And I didn't expect it would come back to do much, because I didn't have that much confidence in the leadership of the organization that we built. But at the same time, we're building other things, right? And I had another technology company that now is worth a couple $100 million, I think, that we were building at the same time. And so it worked out because we focused on that more. And this guy went and built this company with the new ownership, the new majority partners, and they got along fine, right? I mean, for us, it wasn't the core values weren't there for me, but it worked out for the new owners, and they've done fine, right? Sold it for 10 times what they paid for it back 5 years ago, right? And so the Uber bucks in the construction industry, there's a few companies doing it, but the new company that's buying this company, I think, will probably take it to multi-billion-dollar value if they do what it set out to be. But again, you just don't know, right? And I think that that business pivoted a few times, and it'll probably pivot again before it gets to the real value. But again, sticking to it, like you're saying, you got to dream, stick to it, right? You got to know sometimes to get off of what you think is a good idea. I mean, it could be done many different ways. And so, and then again, I would love to talk to him, because I believe that in the career world, we have a problem when it comes to, we don't have enough kids understanding in the skills in the trades world. The money is really big now. So I don't care where you're in the country. If you're good at what we do, you will make over $100,000 within a couple of years out of high school, right? And if you like heavy equipment, and you like technology, the technology today is beyond most people's dreams as far as what we use 3D for and AI for and all that. And if a kid wants to make great money, but maybe isn't college material, doesn't want to go to college or can't afford to, we've got some great opportunities. So I feel like niche, if it was one where it said, hey, if it interviewed kids to understand what their niche was, sometimes they're going to find out that it's just not undergraduate degree, or maybe they went to college and they got a degree in business, but they can make a couple $100,000 within 5 or 6 years in construction, and they like it, right? So
that's a great, it's a great perspective. I think you're absolutely right. But it's and going back to what you said about pivoting, I agree with you. You got to listen to the market. You've got to evolve based on the feedback you're getting. I think a lot of times people are not successful as entrepreneurs because they're not really listening to customers or potential customers. So you've got to make changes. Although I think people do overuse the word pivot, because when I hear pivot, what I think about is, they make a huge, complete change,
Yeah, you're right.
And because I think a lot of times success isn't that this didn't work, so now you're doing that. No, it's more like evolutionary. You're listening and you're making changes along the way, and that's how you tailor what you're doing to be successful. But
so I like that way you say pivot doesn't mean a major pivot, right?
Right. Right.
Is it and what you said a minute ago? As we grow businesses consistently, the most important thing is that feedback loop, right? I mean, if we're listening to customers and we really value the feedback loop, customer in most cases engage with you a lot more as you're trying to solve their problem, right? And a lot of times in my early years, I didn't do a very good job in that. I really believe that I knew more than the customer. This is what the customer needs. We're going to do this because I know for sure this is what they need, right? That was not right very often, okay? And eventually, as we like the Uber dump trucks, or what we do with we assess properties using drones and AI, and it's a technology company we have, or just our paving businesses, right? We value that feedback loop more than ever before, and it pays off in just huge dividends, because your customer kind of not only they help you understand their real problems, but then once you solve their problems, they're there for life as a friend because they were part of building this thing, whatever it is, right? It's kind of cool.
Absolutely. But back to my story. So, basically I invested in niche, and I invested in some other early stage companies as an individual angel entrepreneur, angel investor. I was really a super angel investor. And then I enjoyed that, so I started a venture firm. So I raised a $75 million
Hold on,
fund.
what's the difference between an angel investor and a super angel investor?
Amount of money. You
Okay.
know, maybe an angel investor throws in 25 or 50,000 or something, but a super angel is maybe somebody who's already been successful and could do more. So like with me, my initial investment in Niche way back when was $1 million, and I led the Series A round. So that was more of a super angel investment. And then that led me to starting a formal venture firm. So I started it was called my former COO at Free Markets, a guy named David Becker, who was a friend of mine from Harvard Business School. We started a firm called Meakem Becker Venture Capital together, and we raised a $75 million fund, and then invested that and did very well with that. But that's it. It's and we invested in a whole bunch of companies, and some of them did well. But that was starting in 2006. And one thing I learned about that, though, by the time I got to the end of the investment period, which was at the end of 2012 into 2013, was I realized that I enjoy being an operator a lot more than I enjoy being an investor. And sometimes you end up finding a guy like, I'll mention his name again, Luke Skurman at niche.com, who's just a wonderful guy and a great leader and somebody who wants to learn and is always improving. Unfortunately, as a venture investor, or even as an angel, investor to early stage businesses, that's more rare than you'd hope. A lot. Maybe this goes back to the story you were telling, where sometimes there's a clash of culture, there's a clash of beliefs, there's a clash of values, and sometimes people are really, really great and really sweet and really nice and really on top of it before you invest, and then you stroke that check, and then they're a lot harder to work with. And so bottom line was, I decided that I didn't want to stay in the venture business for the rest of my career. So it was just about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 10 years ago, in 2012 and 2013, when I was deciding what to do next. And I had this idea for forever. And as I told you off camera and off microphone, I was telling you the story before that I'm a family guy. I've got, I've been married 34 years now. Back then it was 24 years, and I have 5 kids. And now, back then we just had the 5 kids. Now I've got 5 kids, 2 grandsons, and a granddaughter on the way. So I'm a family guy, and I'm married to a great family girl, and we love our family. And I had all these memories. I had all these photos and videos, and then documents from my career. I had all this stuff. And then I'm actually interested in genealogy and family history, and I had stuff from the past too. And I was trying to figure out, what do I do with this stuff? And I realized that if it was just physical, if it was just videotapes and photos and stuff in boxes, that stuff was going to get lost. I mean, there's one copy, it's in a box in the basement, nobody's enjoying it, nobody's seeing it, nobody's learning from it, and it's going to get flooded. If there's a flood in the basement, it's gone. Or if the physical stuff is going to get lost. I say that a lot of times a lot of people our age have had the experience of older parents who've are gone into assisted living, or they passed away, and it happens with everybody. It's inevitable. And I think a lot of family memories have ended up, in the bottom of dumpsters and eventually in landfills, right? And it just gets lost. And so, and that's just the physical stuff. Even by 2012, 2013, everybody had one of these, and you're producing memories all the time, like every single day. And then a lot of stuff gets lost and over the digital cliff too. And so I said, well, what I need is for all my family memories, all these photos and videos of my kids when they were little, and, growing up, and my career stuff, and, stuff from my IPO, and we took Free Markets public in 1999. Where's that? It's got to be in the cloud, but it's got to be permanent. It can't be temporary. So I started looking at all the terms of service of all the major cloud storage and sharing and social media providers. And I realized something, which is that they're all temporary. Bottom line is that, and I won't mention specific brand names, but with any of them, read the terms of service. If it's an advertising model, like a social media site with an advertising model, they data mine every single thing you upload. They actually assert ownership of it once you upload, and they have the right to delete it whenever they want. And if you're no longer alive and you're no longer valuable to advertisers, they will delete your stuff. And then there's the pay as you go cloud storage model, where, and a lot of people love, everybody loves, ARR, annual recurring revenue, right? So all these businesses are built on getting monthly payments. And that's true of the little businesses. It's true of the big businesses. And the problem is, though, as a consumer, if you stop paying, what happens if you've saved 40,000 photos and 10,000 videos and all these documents and stuff on somebody's site, and then you stop paying, which you are going to do when you get Alzheimer's or when you get dementia or when you die or when you get distracted or whatever, eventually, even if you're the most conscientious person in the world, you're going to stop paying. What happens when you stop paying? They delete. They say it out loud. They say it's right there in the terms of service. The largest provider in the world right now, the most valuable company in the world, which is the largest provider of cloud storage, I won't mention their name, they say very clearly that when you die, they delete your stuff. And most people don't know this. So anyway, I realized this 10 years ago, and I said, wow, what the world needs is a permanent cloud storage and sharing place where people can save and organize and share all their save and organize all this stuff, but then share it with all their friends and family, because just saving it's no good. Can't be locked away in a Dropbox somewhere, or excuse me, it can't be locked away, in a safe deposit box somewhere, because who's seeing it? No, it's got to be in a place where you can share, but it has to be secured. There can't be data mining. It's got to be like people control their own stuff. So basically, and then what we did is we started doing the research and started digging into it. And I had this conviction about this permanent, cloud storage and sharing. But then I also realized, as we got in the market and started working the business, and this was not a pivot, but this was a learning and a evolution. We realized that, yes, there were a few good men like me. I like the Marine Corps phrase, a few good men. There were a few good men who really cared about the family memories, but man, there were just tons of fabulous women. I mean, the customer base were really the fabulous moms and grandmas out there who really, really loved the family memories. And so, and what we realized was, talking with a lot of them and started to serve a lot of them, was, wow, they really want a complete memory keeping site. So it's really a pain for mom if she's uploading to one site to do her holiday card, and then she's digitizing somewhere else, and she's getting thumb drives back, which she could lose, of the old videotapes. And then she's syncing her phone to yet another site, and everything's a digital mess. It's incredibly stressful. Everything's everywhere. And by the way, if everything's a mess and it's all everywhere, it's all going to get lost too. It's all going over the digital cliff. So what I realized was, okay, we need to, so this is the company is Forever, at forever.com. And bottom line is, we realized, okay, what women need, and a few good men, is they need a complete and permanent and trustworthy memory keeping site on the internet, in the internet cloud. And that's what we built. So over 10 years now. And we're my team and I, we just bang away every day on building forever.com and, forever. And we've got, we're not huge yet, but we've got, tens and tens and tens of thousands of paying clients. And we've got tens and tens and tens of thousands more active users. And it's a great model. And people can save all their stuff permanently. They can do all their printing, so their holiday cards, their photo books. They can digitize all their old stuff. They can share with their friends and family, and it's all in one place. And I mentioned to you before offline that they can even do genealogical research. And, not only can you digitize old stuff that's in your basement, you can research and find the really old stuff from your family. And then you can, of course, sync your phone and get all the new stuff and have everything in one place, one Forever account that's going to be there. We guarantee when you pay for Forever storage and you endow your memories, we guarantee your lifetime plus 100 years guaranteed, with a goal of many, 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 many generations beyond that. And people say, well, how is that possible? And I say, well, MetLife was founded in 1864. It's now got 2 or 3 trillion under management, the life insurance company. Nobody worries about MetLife surviving, right? And by the way, you study the history, the first 20 years of MetLife were pretty darn dicey in the 1860s, 70s, and 80s, because it was such a new radical idea to insure people's lives, right? And then how about DuPont Corporation? That's been around for over 250 years. And yeah, a chemical company like that, it's something people need. It's been well managed. It merged with Dow, now Dow DuPont. And the bottom line is that, that's over 250 years old. And how about Oxford University? Its endowment is over 850 years old. So whether it's a a private university model or whether it's a private business model, there are institutions out there that have lasted for many, many generations. And it's all about having an institution that's really focused on the customer, has great governance, and has a lot of money. You got to build up a huge pot of money, like a huge endowment, a huge reserve
Yeah.
fund.
So so in your case, right? I mean, for this to continue and all that, how do you go about that? When you look at you've got a couple hundred teammates on your team now, is that right?
We have 75 full-time employees, and then we have 2,600 forever ambassadors who are commission only, who are out there, selling forever and helping people with forever and generating more buzz. So yeah, it's that size. And
Okay, so yeah, with that, how do you ensure, right, that you're still a young guy, right? You got eventually you want this thing to go on.
right.
What does that look like to you? What does it look like to forever?
So I think that, so there's a couple parts to that answer. It's we're determined to build a long-lasting institution. So part of that is financial. When people buy forever storage, the majority of the money they pay for the storage goes into the forever guarantee fund, which is a endowment to it. It's the for-profit parallel would be like a life insurance reserve fund. So it's just like that legally. And basically it's a pot of money that's growing, that's in diversified set of investments. And it's intended to provide, dividends and capital gains and income to pay for the storage. So, we distribute a little bit every year to help pay for that year's storage. And then, that grows over time as we scale and that gets bigger and bigger. The goal is to make that a very, very large fund that can endow the memories over the long period of time. And then of course we have all these other services. So people are paying for the printing, they're paying for the digitizing, they're paying for the research, they're paying for all these other things. And they're actually paying for some premium services on our site too. So that creates a lot of additional current income. So, we have to build a strong financial, operating company every single year, and then also have this endowment on top. So that's the financial side, which we're making great progress in building. I mean, we're doing very well financially. And then in addition to that, it's about governance and succession. And so, we have I'm the controlling, my wife and I are the controlling investors. We've raised over $30 million from outside sources. Plus we've invested over $6 million ourselves into the business. And so we're well-funded. We continue to be well-funded, and we control, but what I'm doing, I have an outside board of directors I'm accountable to. I'm not just some egomaniac, running this myself. I'm the founder and CEO, but I have a board of directors I'm accountable to. And yeah, I'm young. I intend to do this for decades more, but eventually, I will, I have a strong management team, but I will appoint and the board will confirm a successor. And, that's the way these things have to go. And one thing I believe, I don't believe that companies are successful, or for that matter, universities, other institutions, if there's a continual parade, musical chairs of leadership, that's not good for a business or good for an institution. So I think there need to be leaders who really put the institution first and stick with it for a long time. So, I've already been doing this for 10 years full time. I see it at least another 10 years for me, but then, at some point there will be a successor who takes on for the next generation.
And Glenn, the other thing is this, though. I mean, you're smart enough to see, though. I mean, you don't need. I mean, a lot of people don't think they need a board, right? And that you've got you've got all the stock you need. You're the leader, the CEO. Some people would say, I don't need a board. I'm not. They're just not going to bring much value. Well, you build a board that will bring value. It's a no-brainer. We build boards for everything we do nowadays, and every company we have, or a group of companies too, has a board. And they're really, really sharp people that challenge us to be better. And no matter who we are and not the experience we have, right, a board challenges us to be better, and they've got our interest at heart, but they're not afraid to challenge us. And I think that's something that a lot of people I know that have the success you've had will go into a business and say, I don't need a board. I got all this experience, right? Well, no, you can always be challenged to be way better, especially when you find a board with a very diversified board of minds that are from all different aspects of business and experience. So I like what you're doing. That
Yeah.
you got all this experience. You still got a board, and you listen to them.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's about governance and accountability and professionalism. I think some entrepreneurs build, especially, and listen, if you own your business 100% and have no outside investors, that's great. You have the right to run it however you want, right? Any person does. But if you're going to if you're going to take money from outsiders and you're going to earn them a return over time, and and you want to create a professional organization that can outlive you or even just outlive your family, then yeah, you need to put a board in place. You need to put professional governance in place, and that's a key part of it. And the other to do, I was kind of referring to two things. Jim Collins wrote this great book, Good to Great. And there were some incredible concepts in there. One is, to be successful in business, you got to look at the hard, cold truth. You can't live in some fantasy world. You got to look at the real facts and make decisions on real facts. But another thing he talked about in that book was a level 5 leader. And there are a lot of great leaders who are level 4 leaders, but the key difference between a really great leader and a really, really terrific leader is the terrific leader puts the institution ahead of themselves. And I think that's a key thing, and that's part of this good governance, is that if it's not all about you, it's about the institution, then you have some accountability. And when I was in the Army, I had one great part of my education was being in the officer training for the Army, and many years ago, and I learned a lot of great leadership principles. But one of them, I remember when I went to my first boot camp, I was 20 years old, the summer after my sophomore year of college. And like the second or third day there, they're giving a lecture on leadership. And, that's the way it works. In between all that calisthenics and all the running around and marching and getting your butt kicked here and there, they sit you down and they give you these training sessions, and some officer was talking about leadership. And he said, great leaders are also great followers. And at 20-year-old Glen, I'm like, that's not true. I'm a great leader. I'm not a follower. I'm a leader. But I realized, though, is that great leaders, are accountable. They're under the law. If they're religious, they're under God and certain values and principles, right? Maybe you're a great leader in a business or in a military or whatever, and you do have superior leadership you're accountable to. Or you have a board you're accountable to. So I really believe that great leaders have the humility to be great followers too. And that was just one key. So I think that's part of this professionalism that allows you to establish an institution that's going to last.
Absolutely. I mean, kind of think about it as personal relationships with your wife, right? You're the one you love, you're with the rest of your life. And I think there's many situations where you can be a great leader, but you go home and you better be a great follower too, because there's things she's going to be way better than you are. And if you're not following her, you're not going to be a very good partner, right?
Well, you're right, Gary. And I got to tell you, I this first time I met you, and I didn't say anything. I mean, I'm sorry you lost your wife 3 years ago. I'm sorry for that. I
was a great follower there for 35 years. She was way better than me at many things, especially around the house, raising our kids and stuff. So I learned to follow her in many, many ways. And nowadays I've got an amazing girlfriend that I've dated for about a year and a half now. And the same thing, she's really, really good at a lot of things. And if I think I'm a leader and I'm supposed to lead at everything, somebody like that of that quality is not going to be around very long, because they know they're better than you at a lot of things. And if you follow, you're going to be in a lot better shape. So
boy, I'm so glad you brought that up about a relationship. That any good relationship, you may lead in some respects, but you better darn well follow in others to have a successful relationship.
Yeah, and it's fun that way, right? Because they're going to be good at things you're not going to be good at, and no matter every relationship's different. But it's fun to pick and understand. Hey, you know what? You got that covered. I'm not touching that. Whether you're building a house together, you're designing, around furniture, whatever you're doing, each one knows where their strengths lie. And if you're honest with each other, once in a while you got to flip a coin and say, I really want this one. I want to handle that or this, right? And once in a while you flip a coin and say, okay, I got this or you got it, right? But overall, that's part of life, is understanding where you should lead and where you should follow. And great leaders can do that. And think great leaders can't have very good don't have very good relationships in their personal life because they don't think that way, maybe, right? So
Yeah, some people get their egos too big, and then they, that can be a problem. That can be a
I
big
would
problem.
take that to business too, right? I mean, in our business, we know the things as a leader you're good at, and you know the things other people are much better than you at. And so, stepping out of the way in many cases, leading when it comes to maybe making final decisions a lot of times on major decisions. But man, when it comes to technology, we become one of the strongest technology companies in our space. And it's not because of me, because I suck with technology. I use this phone. I don't use a computer still, right? So for me, I'm blessed that I've got people around me who are super strong in technology, and I know where my strengths are. My strengths are more, old school, understanding equipment and productivity in the field, understanding process in the field, and then understanding how to sell well. But besides that, I mean, a lot of things in my business, I step aside and let other people lead. And nowadays, I'm not even a CEO in any of my companies. I'm a chair, and I love being the chair. And I can add my value whenever I need to. It works out really well because my team of CEOs are doing a way better job than I could do. So it's awesome.
That's great. I mean, yeah, you really practice what you preach. I've got two other things I learned in the Army I learned a lot of things, but two other things I wanted to mention on this discussion. One, and I know you'll agree with these based on this discussion. One is I learned this principle: put the troops first.
Yeah.
And this is another thing I think a lot of people, we as entrepreneurs and leaders, we need to make sure we're well paid. We need to make sure we look out for our interest. Absolutely. We have to do that. You can't be a doormat. Okay. We all understand that, but it's pretty natural to look out for your own interest. What takes some training is to put other people first. And that's what I tell you what, you hear about bad leaders in the military, and I'm sure there's some bad leaders, but I learned from a lot of great leaders, and they were like, it's all about putting, letting your people under that you're putting them first, that you're actively caring about them and actively looking out for their interests. And it starts with this little thing. It's this image, but it's so true. Another thing they teach you in like officer training in the military, and for non-commissioned officers too, all leaders in the military, is, the leader always eats last. So imagine, a day of training in the field, maybe you had lunch at 10 a.m. or something, and now it's 6 p.m. and everybody's been humping it all day and blah, 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 blah. And finally it's time to eat. And there's a chow line, and they brought out hot food, from wherever, and you're in the woods somewhere, and there's this chow line, and there's, 150 soldiers there. You're the commander. You're one of the officers. You get at the back of the line and make sure everybody else eats before you eat. And that, I tell you what, that image is so valuable. Just, hey, when you're thinking about you want to keep great people in your business, you better make sure you're worried about raises for your really good people before you're worried about your own raise. If you want to keep them.
I had a grandfather who was a Navy commander, and he was a CB, and he told me that same lesson many times, right? And he was a mentor of mine in my life. But what I did, people always ask me why I did this, but all the way up until I stopped. We have a snowplowing business we've always had. So it's one business we've not scaled a lot across the country, but we've kept in it because we've got great customers that want us to remove their snow. So it's a nice little business, and we continue to grow it a little bit. But when I stopped snowplowing, only about probably 10 years, probably 12 years ago, I stopped doing snow removal. And I always believed I had to be the first one out and the last one in. And I had the ability to stay awake for 2.5, 3 days at a time. And so I could do it. And I felt there wasn't a danger or anything, right? I drank, plenty of caffeine. I stayed fresh. I listened to good music. But either way, I did that all the way up until the time I stopped snow removal. And my wife would tell me, and my people in the business say, Gary, you don't have to do that anymore. And I'd be like, man, no, I do. If I'm expecting some people to stay out for a day at a time, 20 hours straight or whatever, they got to know that I can do it too. And I took it maybe a little too far sometimes, but overall, I think it was a good thing because I never had a problem with people working a little harder, staying on a little longer. And snowplowing it's really a tough business, and but it's actually kind of fun if you look at it competitively, sort of. But either way, I think it's important. It's such an important thing. And very oftentimes in my business, I looked at my customers as most important first. I took care of them first always, and everything, was second to them. But I really do believe that if you take care of your team first, as you just said, your customers are going to be taken care of very well, right? I mean, if
Yes.
you just think about taking care of your team really well, and you're there for them, and they're going to take great care of your customers. So it all works out as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that I love your example of just, it's leading by it's not only it's putting your team first and leading by example. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the complete thought. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. Another key thing I learned is the 70-30 rule. Have you heard of the 70-30 rule?
I know, but I do use the 80-20 rule all the time.
80-20, maybe it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's this concept of, some people get really, and this is a real danger in today's world too, with so much data. People get kind of data paralysis, analysis paralysis, where they just want more and more data and they can't make a decision. And one thing that the military really stresses with military leadership is you got to make a decision. The most painful thing as a subordinate is a leader who can't make a decision. And so, and this is so true in business, just like it is in other spheres. It's like, get as much data as you can, but don't. If you spent 5 hours analyzing it, that's enough. It's time to make a decision and go on. And it's like gather 70% of the information you can. That extra 30% is never worth the time. It's much better to make the decision on 70% of the information, make a decision, execute really, really hard, really as well as you can, and then make adjustments. It gets back to
Yeah.
like the Jim Collins idea of, you're look at the brutal facts. It's like, okay, you make a decision, you're executing. If you were wrong or if you need to make adjustments, you look at the facts and you make another decision, you make adjustments. And that is a brand of leadership and a style of leadership that leads to success, makes subordinates really happy because things are happening. And it leads to success. And it's whereas
100%, Glenn. And that's kind of like, so I use this 80-20 rule, kind of similar, but really, the enemy of good is perfect, right? If you want to get things perfect before you go to market, you'll never get to market. It's never going to be perfect until you actually put it in the market and test it, right? Use the feedback loop like we talked about earlier with your customers, and you're honest to me, and you're saying, hey, this product's not perfect yet. It's an idea that we think is going to solve a lot of problems. Not perfect. Would you help us get it as perfect as possible? It'll never be perfect. Would you help us get it to be as close to perfect as possible, right? Because so often, like you said, great ideas never come to fruition because you got friends of mine are engineers and they're very analytic, right? And they won't bring it to market because they're afraid it's not good enough yet. But if nobody's like your business, if nobody's ever done it before, get it out there and go test it and learn from the market, because you've done this enough in the business you've been in, but you're successful because you're not afraid of getting out there with something that's not perfect. Honest with your customers that it's not.
Yeah, it's so true. I look back on Forever, the version of Forever we had out there 10 years ago. It was just exactly 10 years ago. It was fall of 13 when we launched the first version. And yeah, we've come a long, long way since then. But yeah, you're right. All the way along that path, we learned and we improved, and we didn't even dream of some of the functionality and capabilities we have now. We hadn't even dreamed of it back then. We just got out there in the market and learned. I had my co-founder at Free Markets, my first internet company, was a guy named Sam Kinney. It is a guy named Sam, fabulous guy. He lives in the Miami area now, but he had this great analogy he used to use, because when I started I left GE, I started this company, and I was persuading Sam to join me and start it with me, and he did, fortunately, and we had a great time building the company together. But he used to say, you don't. It's like you're in a company, you have a good job, you're earning good income, but you have this entrepreneurial desire to start something. You really want to get out there, and how do you do that? And he said, well, you gotta walk through the door. It's like until you go through the door, you can't even see all the other opportunities that are out there. If you stay stuck on like the big company side of the door, you're never going to see the opportunities. You got to walk through that door. And yeah, I mean, you want to make sure you walk through the right door. You want to make sure you don't go after a bad opportunity. But man, you gotta have the courage to walk through the door, because once you walk through that door, then other opportunities open up.
For sure, and I've got many examples of that, and they're a lot of fun to think about. But Bernie Marcus is a friend of mine who is a founder of Home Depot, one of the best entrepreneurs in our country's history, and he was pretty much broke at 50 years old, right? And he went on his own because he was a CEO of a group of stores, and anyway, he had some major challenges with the state of New Jersey. It was an attorney general that was coming after from some BS lawsuit, and they fired him. The board fired him from the CEO job. He was pretty much broke. I mean, he had very little saved and all that. And then he went through that pretty quick. And then he started the first version of Home Depot. And anyway, what a great story though. But he never walked out on his own before he got fired. It was a blessing to be fired, right?
Yeah, good thing he got fired.
He was totally broke at 50, like 51, and then got a loan from a friend of his that became one of his partners. And he's at 60 years old, he was a billionaire. At 94 years old, he's one of the greatest examples of an entrepreneurial success story has ever been. Yeah. And it was pretty much a 10, 15-year run for him, right? So again, but he stepped through that door and said, "Okay, I'm fired. I guess I've always thought I'm going to start something. It's time to do it."
You know what I like about I've never met Bernie Marcus. You're lucky to be friends with him. But I've seen him interviewed many times. And one thing I like about Bernie Marcus too is he's a patriot.
100%.
He cares. He's not a big political guy, but he's a patriot. He cares about our society. He cares about our country. He wants our country to do well. He wants our people to do well. And that comes across with him. And I like that about him.
Yeah, so I was on the phone the other day, and I love him. He's a great mentor of mine, and that's all he talks about is what's this country going to be like if we don't do X, Y, and Z better, right? Or if we don't find the right person to run this country, what's it going to look like? And he does a lot for veterans, as you know. He does a lot for families, and just amazing. Him and his wife are just amazing philanthropic people. But anyway, what I love about him is he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. Many people don't like what he says sometimes because he's just very outspoken. But he does it because he's got a huge heart and he cares. He's taking the blessings he's received, right, in entrepreneurship, and he says now we're going to protect entrepreneurship. And he started an organization called Job Creators Network about 12 years ago, and I was blessed to be one of the founders of it with him. And we've won some big battles in the country to really save. I love your title, your name, your business, free markets, because free markets is what we fight for, right? Freedom and free markets. Yeah. And anyway, but Job Creators Network won the lawsuit against Biden with the vaccine mandate. We stopped the vaccine mandate on the private sector workforce, or about 80 million working Americans. I was the first plaintiff on that lawsuit. And then we also stopped the student loan bailouts. That was us again. $500 billion of bailouts that we didn't think were good for small business taxpayers. And it was a big win again. So Bernie's the guy that had this vision to build this thing, Job Creators Network. My vision, I'm the finance chair of the board nowadays. And my vision is to continue it going to go stronger than ever in the coming years, so that we have businesses that stand up for free markets. So your free markets, that the name of that company really hits me.
I like the F's. My first internet business was free markets, and now my current main niche, of course, was with an N, but my current main business is forever. So I always think to myself, like, something about that F, the F letter, and entrepreneurship for me. So
aspirational too, right? Forever, it's aspirational. Free markets, yes. To keep free markets, it's aspirational to protect this country. It's our veterans, and it's this great system where anybody can start with a dream and really accomplish their American dream.
Yeah. Well, it's also incentives, right? What you talked about, the student loan bailout thing. The problem with that is that it creates the wrong incentive. If people can just waste money on, get a degree in basket weaving and not really study hard and not really be able to do anything with it, and then they get bailed out of that, well, then you're creating an incentive for a whole new generation to do the same thing. Yes. And and people need to, I know people who don't pay off their, I have a person I know very well here. I live in Pittsburgh, and, they just, they don't want to pay off their student loans. They figure eventually they'll get forgiven. And it's like,
Yeah.
but there's always money for vacations. There's always money for restaurants. There's always money for this, that, and the other thing. But there's no money to pay off the student. And had they just been prudent with their money for, they would have had those loans paid off years ago. And it's like, and there are a lot of us who've saved a lot of money. I saved money for obviously for my own children, paid for all their college. I'm now saving a lot of money for grandchildren and investing it for their college. And, that's what we need to encourage, I think, in everybody is being willing to save and invest and not get a free handout.
100%. Accountability is a big thing. When you're accountable in your life, you feel good about yourself, right? When you're accountable to raise your family, to feed them, to pay for some educations, and buy a car and pay for the car, right? I mean, those are the beginning. It's the beginning in your life of accountability is what really builds the foundation of accountability in the future as you build a business and pay for a business, or you're in a business and you get to be a leader in the business because you're accountable. I mean, American dream is pretty easy to access at all different levels, in my opinion, but it starts with accountability. And if we start, giving everybody a pass on doing bad things or not being responsible, boy, our country looks a lot different in the future. So we're good. But okay, so I want to get Chris in because Chris he's itching to ask questions. I'm hogging you for myself, like I like to do. All right. So Chris, can you come on in and I want you to fire some questions at Glen and let's hear what you got.
Yeah, sure. Glenn, this has been awesome. So a couple of questions. First, forever.com, niche.com, freemarkets.com. Just those URLs alone have to be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. How did you get those? That's an incredible accomplishment there.
Well, Free Markets was, it was March of 1995, and we just signed up for it for $12. I mean, that's when I got Meakem.com too. I wish I had been smart enough to sign up for a whole slew of them, but we were just way ahead of the curve. They were just all available. Everything was available. Niche, they did. I was not directly involved in that acquisition. The team, I'm in Gary's role. I'm the chairman of that one. So Luke and his team running the company every day, they were able to acquire that for, I don't know what the exact amount of money was, but it was a reasonable amount of money. Mm-hmm. With Forever, I had the idea for the company. I was like, we need a permanent, complete place on the internet to keep people's memories and to let them share all those things I talked about. And I had a list of potential names, and one of the 20 potential names was Forever. And we were able to, I did hire a broker. There are people in the business of helping people acquire internet domains. And I hired a broker, and they had, and it was not just with one of it was a small firm that's in that business, and they had relationships, and they tracked down who owned it. And I could tell just on the internet myself, it wasn't being used actively, but they tracked down who owned it. It was a major corporation that had closed down a line of, a product line that had the Forever brand years before, and they'd probably signed up for it for free in 1995 as well. And so this was in 2012, and it cost me I think about $700,000-800,000 to buy it then. Yeah.
I mean, that's a deal in the long term. And I'm amazed you were able to outbid De Beers and all the other diamond providers for that.
Well, this is one thing I learned, way back, I think we learn in our careers and our lives and cumulatively, and hopefully we learn things and we retain that learning. And so, way back when I talked about some of the lessons I learned, from the military and leadership, but my first job, other than my own entrepreneurial stuff as a kid, my first job in a real business was with Kraft General Foods. Now, and then they dropped the General Foods and it was just Kraft. Now it's Kraft Heinz. But that business, it was all about brand name preservation. And I developed a lot of sensitivity around brands and the value of brands working for Kraft Heinz.
Mm.
And so, yeah, every time I've started a business, I've been very focused on what's going to be the name, what's going to be the brand. Okay, we own, by the way, Forever Inc., the corporate entity, which is a Delaware C corporation. It's actually a subset of a Delaware C called the Delaware B. It's a Delaware C corp that's a private, it's a public benefit corporation. So it's a for-profit corporation under Delaware law, accountable to shareholders, but because there's a public benefit, the public benefit is to the customers who store their memories with us. Basically, we think that preserving their memories for the long term, for multiple generations, is a huge public benefit. And therefore, under our bylaws, our board of directors has to look out for shareholder interest, but it also must look out for the long-term interest of those customers who bought Forever Storage.
I
So
like
we're
that.
actually, yeah, we're
That
actually a
makes-
public benefit corporation. But the bottom line is, every time I've started a company, yeah, I really care about the brand, and I worry about the URL, the domain. I worry about the brand name. With Forever, we own the Forever trademark for everything having to do with memories. So digitization, cloud storage, printing, anything having to do with photos and videos, we own the Forever domain in multiple countries, not just in the US, but not in the entire world, but in major markets all over the world.
Wow.
Well, I mean, that's such a smart investment. Like, you're not going to forget forever.com. That's, I could have many blows to the head and I would still recall that.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now, one thing I've learned too is that, and it's funny that a lot of people waste. You think back, Gary and Chris, to Super Bowls of the past, and I think this year the Super Bowl ads are going to cost $7 or $8 million for 30 seconds, and maybe it's 10, and it's something like that. But maybe 10 years ago it was $5 million for a 30-second ad. There are a lot of companies that have raised venture capital dollars and wasted a lot of money on Super Bowl ads over the years. You don't build a brand. I mean, and listen, there are a couple of iconic Super Bowl ads people remember, like the famous Apple 1984 ad with that goes way back. Maybe everybody doesn't remember that one, but I think a lot of people do. But
Right.
to build a brand over time, it's hard, and there is so much noise out there. My free markets company, that was a B2B, business to business company, and if you get a couple of big corporate clients and you save them a lot of money or provide a lot of benefit to them, and you get buzz going in an industry and get in the industry, publications and things, it's easy to build a B2B presence. In consumer, the world is just so noisy, and marketing has changed so much that with social media, et cetera, it's a challenge. Even if you've got a great brand, it's a challenge.
What do
So,
you use? What type of advertising you do?
we do very little right now because we're trying to find the efficient model. We're trying to find the model where we spend $5 and get back $1. We spend $1 and get back 5, and it's difficult. It's our primary growth mode has been, we have these Forever ambassadors I mentioned. We have over 2,600 people, few good men, mostly women, who are out there who get it's all through forever.com, but they assist and help and coach people, and they get a commission when they bring in a client to Forever. And then word of mouth, and we do reels on Instagram and Facebook. We do social media stuff on Facebook. We're not spending right now any money on Google AdWords because we have not found the formula yet on spending $1 and getting back 5, and we can't.
Couldn't
Sorry,
you
go ahead.
couldn't you partner with somebody like I think of whatever, Home Depot, wherever, Walmart, whatever. But is there like a the women go to these stores where they have picture frames and all that. What's it called? Some of these the national brands.
Michael's. Yeah.
Michael. There's a couple other ones, right? Couldn't you partner with those guys?
The problem is that trying to maintain good margins. We have very good margins. Our gross margin's over 65%. But it's easy to while that away, spreading
Yeah.
everybody, if you partner, people want a cut of the action.
Yeah.
And the problem too is that, with a major store like that, okay, so in order to be big enough for them to care, they got to make some real money on it.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's hard to create a set of economics where a large chain can make enough real money to care. So, so we're working very hard on this. We have a great marketing team, and we're building. And certainly, when I get a lot of ridiculous requests, but when I get a really good request like this to be on somebody's show or on their podcast, I say yes. I've always done
Yeah.
that. That's always been my policy. Back with Free Markets, I remember we got our first big media hit, which was we were on in Information Week magazine, and man, we went all out to do everything we could to support that article, and they wrote a great article, and we got a lot of buzz from that. But when the Wall Street Journal or Fortune magazine or Forbes or whatever came calling, or Information Week, we would go all out and and make sure we did a good job supporting that effort, and we got a good article out of it. And then same thing when we were public, I was publicly traded CEO for about 4 years there, 4 or 5 years. And, when CNBC would come calling and want me to come on, the answer was always yes,
Absolutely.
so we're doing many, many, many things to enhance our marketing, but, it's one of the dangers to new startups, and this is a watchword for any entrepreneur, is you can waste a lot of money on the wrong kind of advertising. And if you're not getting a good return on your advertising dollars, you're not going to be around long. So we make sure we're very careful with how we spend our money.
Well, I love the brand ambassador thing. We have a technology company that's a very profitable company I was telling you about earlier. And we haven't come up with we don't have a sales team at all. It's grown from nothing to, a very nice company. And it's now we're going to build a sales team. But my team, unfortunately, I'm not actually fortunate. They think about how we've done it traditionally in my group of companies. It's mostly been inside salespeople. But when you have a product like you have, or like we have on the technology side with a SaaS product that we have, I mean, brand ambassadors could be the very best way to do it, of course. But it's how you find those brand ambassadors, right? And I look at Michael's, whatever, and there's those women in the back that are focused on the albums and the frames and all that. If it's a advantage to Michael's, let's say, to be part of this, because you're gonna, in my opinion, you do more of the stuff, you're going to need more frames. You're going to be, do more pictures and frames in your house. You're going to do more, I would hope, right? More albums too. But you're also going to have a lot on digital. You're going to keep on digital, but you're going to have access to stuff so fast. You're going to use Michael's more, in my opinion, but it just feels like
we actually use, I think that the Michael's is sort of the do-it-yourself, build your own frame. We actually have two different, one very large and one medium-sized corporation we work with on the print side. And so, we have a number of different partners who are out, when you hit the print button at Forever, so you create your photo book, you create your album, you create, a piece of wall art, a canvas, or mugs, or holiday or Christmas ornaments, whatever it is you're creating, blankets. We do great blankets. You're literally creating the design, or, using a design we've pre-created, filling that with photos, putting the caption in, personalizing it, making it your own. And then it's time to order. You push the button. Boom, at light speed, that order is channeled to a factory that's going to produce that custom manufactured thing for you. And 2 days later, it's going to roll off the press and be quality controlled. And then it's going to go by FedEx to your home. And all that works really, really well. And it's pretty, and it's, that technology's been around for a while, but it's pretty amazing when you think about it, that, for a very reasonable amount of money, you can actually get a custom photo book of, your mom's life, or your daughter's, your granddaughter's first year, or your son's life as he graduated from high school, or whatever the occasion is. It's awesome that's so doable.
Do you have a way to also do like, interviews, like video interviews that you can put on this too? Because I feel like that's something that I missed out on with my grandparents, my mom, my wife, or different people that I've lost in my life. I don't feel like we asked enough questions to really get their history and to get the flavor of who they are for the grandkids going forward, right?
Yeah, I've done that with several relatives, and it's been valuable to have those videotapes. We did that we did with my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, we did like a full day of interviews about 2 years ago. And it is invaluable to do that. But that's interesting, the idea of doing a on a tool, whether it's Teams or Zoom or one of the other tools, to actually do that over the internet and save that. We don't have that yet within Forever, but it's a good idea.
I feel like it could be really cool. Okay, so
One of the things that's so interesting about our business with Forever is that there is just so many ideas. We have years, and we've built a really good platform. The platform is really, really, really good. We have tremendous, I believe we have the world's best digitization. I think that you can go to forever.com and order a Forever box, gets delivered to your home. You fill it with the old videotapes, you fill it with the films, all that stuff, photos, negatives, whatever you have. We can digitize anything, and we care. We have a special facility outside Green Bay, Wisconsin, where we do all this work. We have an amazing team of people, amazing equipment and technology, a brand new facility. It's very clean. Interior loading dock. When the FedEx truck arrives, it comes inside. We unload, dry and clean. Everything is beautiful. But
Cool.
that's an example. And then we just our whole business, whether it's the printing, the digitization, the mobile apps, I really think we built a fabulous platform. That said, oh my goodness, there are so many good ideas on things we need to do to continue to expand and improve. Like we don't have facial recognition and auto organization yet. That's coming next year. So it's basically AI, artificial intelligence type capability that's coming in 2024. We don't have a family tree view yet. So we are adding that probably in early 2025, because we're doing all this, helping people do all this genealogical research. We're helping people capture all this content. And you can organize in albums, you can tag people and all that stuff. But we absolutely need to have the private family tree, because one of the issues with there are several companies out there with public family trees, and that's all great. Problem is, and it's great because all your cousins and your second cousins and third cousins all help you build this family tree, right? And that's wonderful. You get this leverage of all this help. The problem is, if your name is Mary Charles, and you love to do this research and you put all this stuff together and you built your family tree, you may not want your third cousin overwriting what you've done.
Right.
You know that what you've done 50 years from now isn't really going to be there anymore, because other people are going to have overwritten it. So at Forever, we want people to be able to, again, people control their own account. They own it. They control, even when they're gone, they still own it. We have a relationship with them. Even when they're gone, we still are accountable to them. And so we're going to, let people build their own private family tree, let their relatives access it and research it and see it. But, what Mary built in 2023 is going to still be there in 2150, or 2280.
You've got so many verticals that, like you're saying, my mind goes crazy. There's so many verticals you can spin off of this thing, but you have to stay focused, right? You have to keep your team very focused to do everything they have right now, expand it and grow it first, and be the best you can at that, and cautiously do the next vertical as you have to, right? Without being spread too thin, and nothing gets done right. Right. So, Chris, what other questions you got for this all-star?
Oh man. So, Glenn, I'm really curious. It sounds like, you're a super angel, and you're around kind of great business ideas and great business operators very, very frequently. How did you know that Forever was the idea? How did you know that was your next move?
Chris, that's a great question. I've pursued things that I thought were both the things where I've really gone after myself, and I've invested in a lot of different internet companies, including Niche, and I've been a supporter and an advisor, et cetera. But the two internet companies I founded, Free Markets, which was automating this industrial sourcing process and this buying process, this exchange between buyers and sellers in the suppliers in the industrial space. I was really passionate about that. I thought it was. I did the research. I thought it was a giant opportunity, And I was just really passionate that the world needed that, and that spreading this free market concept for industrial sourcing around the world was a good mission. I didn't want to do, I don't like wasting my time on things that aren't mission oriented. I like to have real purpose in what I do. I want to be able to, I always say I want to do well by doing good. And, I want to have highly purposeful, meaningful businesses I work on where I can also do really well. So wind the clock forward to forever. I just was passionate that the world needed a permanent place in the internet cloud, in the cloud, where people could save and share their memories and do all their memory keeping and have it be there after they were gone. And I just thought that was a really important thing for the world. And I thought it was a big market. So it kind of met my criteria of I'm passionate about it, and it was a big business opportunity. So I went for it. And then it gets back to that 70-30 rule or the 80-20 rule, whatever you want to call it. At some point, as an entrepreneur, you don't have all the information. You don't know, and you just got to go through that door. You just got to go for it. And hopefully you go for it when you really are passionate about something. Especially, so for me, the last, yes, I have, I advise Niche. I'm the chairman of their board. I have, I have some other investments. I have some things going on, but my main focus the last 10 years has been forever. And that's what I do. It's my office, it's what I do every day. And so, I think that, and in order to be successful, tying it back to the earlier conversation, you got to stick to things. It's not like things go well. I always, a lot of things go well, but I always tell, when I speak to young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general, I tell them, it's not about if you're going to get knocked down. It's about when you get knocked down, how quickly you're going to get up and how hard are you going to be swinging when you get up, because you're going to get knocked down. And that's what I found. It's not like success is easy. Maybe other people have, made a lot of money and been really successful and it's been easy. I will tell you right now, it hasn't for me. I've worked really hard and many late nights, and it's a lot of dedication. It's taken a lot of oomph, and that was true of free markets. It was true of forever. I know it's been true of my team at Niche. It's true of many other companies I've been involved in. It's not easy. It's not easy to succeed. You got to work really, really hard and be really determined, and you better be. And one thing that makes it worthwhile is if you really like what you're doing. I also tell. A great piece of advice I got when I was leaving Harvard Business School many years ago. A professor it wasn't a class, but it was some like farewell lecture he was giving us. And he said, in order to be successful, you're going to have some tough times in your career, and you're going to have to stick to it. And you got to be tough, and you got to be determined, and you got to have stick-to-itiveness. And that's a good thing. But then he said, the caveat was, but don't do anything you don't like for more than 2 years. If you're unhappy for a month and you're like bailing after a month, you're not going to be successful. You got to be tougher than that. You got to have more stick-to-itiveness than that. But he said, if you're really unhappy with something for 24 months and you haven't changed yet, now you're hurting yourself. Because if you're unhappy, you're not going to do that well. If you're unhappy, you're not firing on all cylinders. You're not playing your position in life. And so, have stick-to-itiveness, be determined, but, but give it 2 years. And if it's not working after 2 years, now fortunately, forever is done really well and it's working, and I'm committed for the long term. But I love that piece of advice about, be really determined, but, make sure it's working. And that's true of any job. It's true of anything, any career, any business.
Yeah. That's such pragmatic and oddly specific advice, and I love that. And I can actually directly, personally relate to that. I was a budget analyst for NASA for just under 2 years, and I didn't like it day one. I didn't like it last day, and and to your point, like 2 years, I was like, no, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and of course, I think also a lot of people have come to me over the years. Well, again, that analogy? How do I walk? I have this great job. I have a family, whatever. I have expenses. How do I walk through that door? And frankly, I know people have not been successful. The majority of people aren't successful as entrepreneurs. And I know people haven't been successful, and they haven't, the people who have not been successful have not been willing to do the work. I say, well, okay, here's what you do. Don't leave and have no money. Keep your job, show up every morning, every Monday morning, work hard through Friday evening, do a really good job. But then, at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whenever you get home or on the weekend, don't be, back to our previous conversation, Chris, don't be spending I love football, I love sports, but don't be spending your afternoon watching football.
Mhm.
Spend your Sunday working on your business plan. Work hard, do a good job. And by the way, don't be heading off to Cancun on a vacation. Save your money, because in order to walk through that door and start a business, you've got to have a plan. You got to do the research. You got to make sure you're doing something worthwhile. You know what you're doing, and you got to have the money to support it. So what does that mean? It means you save your money and you have a moonlight job working on your new business. And when you've got enough money saved and you've done enough work to know it's a good idea, that's when you walk through the door. But honestly, hey, this is a conversation between entrepreneurs. Not everybody's cut out for it. Not everybody's willing to work hard enough to make that stuff happen. And then some people aren't honest with themselves about that either. Some people just pretend.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I've hired people that to partner with, actually, brought people as partners, equity partners, and thought they were entrepreneurial. They worked in a company, and they come on board, and in some cases, I was totally wrong, and they wanted to work a 40, 50-hour a week job. And when the times got tough, they couldn't work the 60, 70, 80 hours because they just weren't built for it. And so you got to know that there's times you got to be willing to work. You got to be excited to work 100-hour a week to get to a problem or to get to a great opportunity, right? And that's not for everybody. So
No.
So Chris, what are the takeaways you got here? I got a bunch of them here. Let's see if you cover the takeaways I got and the nuggets for success that I picked up here.
Yeah. Well, Glenn definitely made it easy to find a lot of nuggets of entrepreneurial wisdom here. So learn from both positive and negative business experiences. You can mint money by finding better suppliers at better pricing. Like, that was so true for Glenn. He created an entire business off of that. You don't succeed overnight. Leadership musical chairs is never good for business success. Great leaders are also great followers. This is also applicable for marriages. Very, very helpful. Leaders always eat last. You do well by doing good, and don't do anything you dislike for more than 2 years. Glenn, where can our audience find out more about you?
You can find out more about me by going to forever.com. Just FOREVER, the word forever.com, or the brand forever.com. I also have a LinkedIn account. I do not have an X or a Twitter account right now, but I'm thinking about increasing my social media exposure in the future. We'll see.
I picked up a couple more things there, Chris. Two things I liked a lot. Put your troops first. We've talked about the past, but here's an example of somebody that definitely does that and does an amazing job with it. And thanks for your service, buddy. Thanks for serving our country, because we really appreciate that. I always appreciate that. I know Chris does too.
Thank you.
And then your level 5 leadership. I agree 100% with the statement you made. Right. You got to put that business ahead of yourself. Right. The business, that team, that community that you're leading, you got to put it all ahead of yourself. And if you're not the right leader someday, or there's an opportunity to take a bunch of cash out of it, but it's best for the business to keep it in and serve those people that have served you, right? That's what a great leader does. And we notice that in my businesses. I got 14 businesses now, and every leader I have, I believe, thinks this way. When it comes to bonus time, my leaders aren't talking about themselves. They're talking about their team. And then last, we talk about themselves. And I had a conversation an hour before this call, this podcast, with one of my leaders that said, Gary, talked to myself and the board. He goes, guys, I want to tell you, I got a bonus plan that I believe I want to execute on with our team. He's the CEO of a nice company in Texas that we have. And he said, but I'm not looking for a bonus. Our CFO is on the call. He's not looking for a bonus. We don't believe we perform well enough, but we want to give our team bonuses. So whatever we normally think is applicable for us, we want to go to the team. So again, that was a great call. The business was one of my only businesses that didn't really grow in enterprise value this year. But my leader saying, "Hey, I don't want anything for myself." Our CFO, he's a stockholder too. But boy, we sure would like to give our team some bonuses. So it's hard not to to honor his request when he's not looking for himself, right? So that's what great leaders are made of, man. So really
That's awesome.
really appreciate this time today with you, Glenn. You're an awesome guy. And one more thing, Meakem, the auto auctions, Meakem.
It is the same last name, it's different spelling.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm sure we're related somewhere back in time, but we're not closely related. And the spelling of my name is very unique. One thing I'm lucky, I'm the only Glen Meakem.
All right.
GLENMEAKEM. If you Google me or whatever, I'm the only one because my last name is a unique. Glen's a very normal, like, American name, but it's not that common. And then Meakem is not a completely unusual name like the Meakem Auto Auctions, but I think they spell it MEECHAM, and we spell it MEAKEM. So our spelling is just very unique.
So Dana's a friend of mine, the founder of that company. Dana Meakem is a great guy. You and him would get along great. He's a servant guy. He's an old school kind of hillbilly. He'll admit it. He's kind of like me. He's a ditch digger, hillbilly, whatever you want to call him. But he is one of the most successful guys I know, and he is because he stays humble, and he's just a really special human being. But we're going to get him on this show as well. He said he'd do it. I'd not be able to nail him down. But what a great name to be associated with. Two great entrepreneurs, same pronunciation, different spelling, which is a good thing.
Awesome. So, hey, well, let me just say thank you to the two of you. What a pleasure it's been to spend time with you, Gary, and you, Chris. You guys are my kind of guys, and I just really appreciate your inviting me to be on your podcast. And thank you so much for the time.
And I'm also going to be a customer talking about this. That you can include me in as an ambassador. Don't pay me a dime, okay? If I perform really well, just send me a Christmas gift or something, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, forever.com.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Ben.
I'd love to stay in touch. Absolutely wonderful. Great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
Take care. Bye now.
How about that guy, Glen? Chris, he was awesome, wasn't he?
Oh, man, he was incredible. That was
another great podcast, Ditch Digger CEO. Where Chris, you're doing a great job finding great people, and some of my relationships have come through for us, and then you've done a great job finding others that really match what we want, right? Leaders in their industry who are just who are great people that are leading great businesses. And boy, Glen was an example, a guy that really has created an industry. He's not only top 1% in this industry, he's created an industry, right? And how fun is that to talk about? So,
yeah, it's really inspiring.
So thanks for everything, Chris. Thanks for helping me with all this. And thank you, Glen, for being our guest today. Until next time, we'll see you on Ditch Digger CEO in next week or so. But what a great day. See ya.